Hello and welcome back to the ROKER RAPPORT Extra podcast. Graham, myself, is back. I've actually broken the duck. I know since you last heard from me, we've actually beaten Doncaster. We've also beaten, on top of that as well, we've beaten Shrewsbury. I was actually at the Shrewsbury game. I haven't seen us win away since we beat Newcastle, and you know what my run was like at home. So it seems like my duck is finally broken. Unfortunately, if it's going that way, I'm actually having to miss the game on Saturday against Southend. But I am going to be chatting about it with Jay from the All At Sea Fanzine. How are you doing, Jay? Are you well?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, looking forward to Saturday.
Yeah, it's been a while since you've been at the stadium, hasn't it? I remember the last one. Do you remember the last time you came?
I remember it very well. Actually, it was about 2007. I think it was the season you went up. We went down from the Championship that year, and I remember we got absolutely hammered 4-0. I think our right back had an absolute nightmare. Got skinned about basically for every single goal down that side, and it was I enjoyed the day out, but it's a long way to go for a 4-0 defeat.
Yeah, and funnily enough, I remember that season very well on the opposite side of things, because we started that season horrifically, but I actually went down to Roots Hall, the one and only time I've been. And I remember Lee Bradbury getting like a double and we got beat 3-1. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember that as well. Well, I mean, that's obviously that's quite a welcome, isn't it, to a Championship football to come to a place like Roots Hall on the opening day, which always I think was like the third game, I think, but it's not exactly a Championship stadium, so I can imagine that it must have been an interesting day out for you. But it was a great day for us, and Adam Barrett got at least one goal.
You did.
Yeah, it was enjoyable, but you got your own back, so.
Yeah, eventually we did all right that season, but I'm pleased to say we didn't start this season, the welcome to League One, quite in the same manner. But I do remember in Roots Hall, the weird thing was I was on a 7-hour coach journey. I did that on the coach, and I remember getting in the ground about 1:45. We got there a little bit earlier. And I remember I was in the second row, and just in front of the first row of seats was just this massive dog shit. And I remember it was like, I don't know why I looked at it and I kind of thought, why is there a huge dog shit in the stadium? And it really, it didn't strike me like a Championship stadium at the time, but obviously very different to the Stadium of Light. But I think one thing we've quite enjoyed about League One actually is these kind of grounds and actually managing to win there. We're on a good run of form. Looking at your run of form, it's a bit topsy-turvy. You've got a win, a defeat, a win, a draw, but you're in 9th. How's the season been for Southend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you. I'm actually going to go back to what you said. I'm glad you mentioned the dog shit on the floor. We've got a problem at Roots Hall with foxes who come in at night, and there's a horrible smell around the place some games because they've had a great time in the night, and they've had a shit all over the floor and things like that. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. But as for this season. Yeah, it's been a strange one. We've had we're a team that has for the last couple of years we've had some very high profile for this level anyway. Players come in on quite big money, and I think it was the former manager Phil Brown, who obviously he's a Sunderland fan actually. Mm-hmm. He kind of gambled and was given a lot of money to sign players like Michael Kitely and Anton Ferdinand, Michael Turner, who you're familiar with. And it kind of didn't really work. He got the sack, and now Chris Powell's had to kind of scale things back, and he's had to try and really cut the deadwood, try and cut the wage bill, but also bring in some younger players and players that he kind of knows and trusts from his previous clubs. It's worked out quite well actually. I'm quite happy with the start we've made. We're 9th at the moment. We've had a couple of games at home where we've lost to late goals. Peterborough, Charlton, Coventry have all beaten us with last-minute goals at Roots Hall, which is quite hard to take. But away from home, we've looked quite good. We've got a couple of good signings. Tom Hopper has had a really good start with us. You may be lucky. I think he may be injured on Saturday because he took a knock last night. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy. I think we've really kind of done as we've expected. We've beaten the teams below us, and we've kind of struggled a bit against the teams above us. But we are where we are, and I think we're in a good position at the moment to try and push on and fight for a playoff place.
And before the season started, what was kind of your hopes for the season? I know League One can be a bit like the Championship. Anyone can beat anyone and anyone can get promoted. But from the outside looking in, I remember looking at Southend as one of the teams that I think could not just surprise people, but be there or thereabouts. And looking through your team, there's a lot of players that I recognise. Obviously, you mentioned Michael Turner before. I think we'll all remember him. But you also got players like Mark Oxley. You've got David Stockdale, Harry Bunn. There's a few players, and Luke Hyam. There's names in there that I do recognise, not just because I play Football Manager, but you've got a decent set of players. And you mentioned Tom Hopper as well. But were you expecting to be around ninth? Are you kind of achieving expectations, above or below?
I'd say above at the moment. I think we're. I always think at this level where you really don't know how you're going to get on at the start of the season. It's one of the good things about football at this level. Actually, you really, unless you are a Sunderland or a Blackburn last season, you're really not sure. And I think we finished about 10th last year. That was above what we expected. We haven't got a budget particularly high at this level. Probably about 14th, 15th in the division. Crowds aren't huge, get about 7,500, 8,000 at home. So we were kind of expecting to. It's hard because the manager. We finished last season really strongly, and there was a lot of expectation about that. But we've had some injury issues at the start of the season. Some of the new signings have come in. You mentioned Luke Hyam. He's only made 2 appearances. He's been out since August.
Okay.
There's Harry Lennon, who came back from a fractured toe. He's a new signing. He came back from a fractured toe, which he got on the opening day last night and broke his leg. So that's another one. So we've had some injury issues, but we've signed some good players. I mean, personally, my personal expectation was if we can get top 10, push for the playoffs, enjoy the season, try and be in with a shout of doing something for as long as possible. Then that would be a good season, and that's kind of how it's working out. And if we can, it's really about kind of keeping those injuries at bay a little bit and going on runs. And we've got a good manager at this level. He's really popular with the fans. We've got a lot of decent players on the side, and you never know if things go smoothly and we have a few sort of injury-free months. Then we can certainly push for the playoffs.
Yeah, and Chris Powell obviously really, really well respected, I think, sort of the football world over, isn't he? Because obviously when he was a player, he was a solid, dependable left back for Charlton. That ended up being so dependable. Sven-Goran Eriksson picked him for a few games, for those of us old enough to remember it. But he has got the experience in sort of the lower leagues. I think he was dealt a bit of a poor hand when he was at Charlton, and that didn't really help him. But obviously, you mentioned he's popular with the fans. Is that based on style of play, personality, or just a combination of a few things?
A bit of everything. I think because he's a former Southend left back. Obviously, he played a lot of games for us in some of the best times of our history in the early 90s, when we went straight through from Division 4 to what is now the Championship. We're all very proud of him when he got called up for England after he left us, and he's someone that treats everyone with respect. He's well regarded. He's thought of as a very nice guy, but there is a bit of a steel to him as well. He's not just he's not just Mr. Nice Guy. And the thing about him at the moment is the appointment of Chris Powell in January he's like the polar opposite of Phil Brown. The absolute polar opposite. So everyone likes him. He doesn't go around slagging the players off, or it's not all about him. He's quite humble. And the previous manager, as much as he didn't do a terrible job with us, and I'll give him, I'll give him a bit of time because he did get us promoted. But Phil Brown wasn't at the end. He was kind of lashing out at everyone. Chris Powell he's just a decent fellow, and he does a lot for charity. And he's very well liked, very well respected by everyone in football, I think, and the players seem to really like him as well, which obviously helps massively.
The form's actually been all right recently when I'm looking through stuff. I've noticed, obviously, you battered Walsall, who've had a good season so far, 3-0 yesterday. But I've noticed the defeat you had at home to Coventry was actually, you were down to 10 men. Did that kind of put pay to that? Was it the 10 men what really ended up losing you the game, or were you kind of 2-0 down already in that game? Or
personally, I thought Coventry were the better side and deserved to win. They could have actually been out of sight, because there was a goal in the first half. They had a header from a corner, which was a good yard and a half over the line. The referee I don't know how the linesman didn't see it. It was right in front of me. So we got away with that. Yeah, they looked quite good. I thought we weren't at our best. Simon Cox got sent off, and he's a key player for us. He was missing last night, but we hoped all right about him. But he'll be back Saturday. But yeah, I think Coventry were actually probably the better side. Last night was a lot different. We were poor in the first half. We had one up front because Coxey was suspended, so and we don't really have an awful lot of depth in that position. But in the second half, we really came out, pushed the midfielder Tim Dieng, pushed him forward to play just behind the guy who came on for Hopper, Sean Mikulski, and it really worked. We really took the game to them in the second half and caused them a lot of problems. Funnily enough, we got a couple of goals from set pieces, and set pieces are really our Achilles heel this season. We've conceded out of the 18 goals we conceded, 10 of them have come from set pieces.
What you like at attacking them, because that's our Achilles heel as well, actually. Hopefully not very good at attacking. We've had 2 clean sheets in the past 2 games, but I think before that we'd only kept 1 clean sheet, and there was so many goals conceded from set pieces. I think hopefully we showed it up, but I won't count my chickens just yet. What you like attacking them? Any good?
Yeah, we were all right last night, but I don't know if there's been a slight change. We've got Sam Manton, who took a few last night, and we scored from 2 of his corners, and Michael Turner had one cleared off the line. I don't think Walsall were particularly great at defending them, in all honesty. But it was a bit weird, really, because they looked quite dangerous from their set pieces because we're so bad at defending them. But we looked quite good from our set pieces because they were clearly quite bad at defending theirs as well. So it was kind of a bit like, maybe it would be like that on Saturday. I don't know. It was a bit strange. We don't normally come out on top with them, but we did last night. So it was a strange one, really.
And you do seem to have a knack of, when you just look to obviously your top scorers this season, you do seem to have 2 guys who get most of the goals, whereas the rest of the goals don't really get spread out too far. You've got Hopper and obviously Simon Cox on 7 and 6 each, I think. Where are we likely to see a threat from with Southend, if not from them?
It's another thing about this season, which is quite different to last season. Last season under Powell, we scored a lot of early goals, and this season we hadn't scored in the first half at home all season until last night. Last season under Powell, we were spreading the goals around with goals from Kite-Lee, McLaughlin, Michael Turner chipped in with a few. This year, we seem to be just relying on the strikers. So things have really kind of changed from last year in that respect. But Tom Hopper and Simon Cox have got, I think Hopper's got 7, Cox has got 6, I think, and yeah, they're the goal threats, really. And as I said, Hopper is probably not going to play, which is a real blow because he's really been our standout signing so far. He's really excelled, really exceeded expectations. But Cox is a clever player as well, and he's on form. He's obviously got pedigree. He's played in the Premier League, played for Ireland. And yeah, I mean, he can cause you problems if he drops deep an awful lot. And he kind of links the play between midfield and attack, but he will hurt you if he gets the ball in the penalty area.
And what is the sort of expected lineup you would have from Southend? Because obviously, if Hopper is out on Saturday, you assume that'll put Cox up front on his own. But are you kind of playing one of those modern 4-5-1, 4-3-3 kind of moulding formation? Or do you have something slightly different?
Yeah, yeah, that's always one, isn't it? Is it 1 up front or is it 3 up front? Managers always like to say it's 3 up front, but I'm not so sure. But last night it was definitely 1 up front, and it didn't work at all in the first half. Cox is not a target man; he's not a big lad, so it'd be interesting to see what he does. I don't know if he might bring Theo Robinson back into the side. Theo Robinson's one of those players who kind of gets a bit of a bad rap off the fans. He's not really he's not the most gifted player you'll see. But he does know where the goal is. He is quick and he's quite physical. He causes defenders. Doesn't really give defenders much peace. So he can be a bit of a handful when he's on form. So he may go with 4-4-2 because I can't see him dropping Harry Bunn, who got 2 goals last night. He has been recently. We've been doing a 5-3-2 with 3 centre halves. But because of the injury situation, we've got obviously Harry Lennon's now injured for until the new year. John White, who's sort of our kind of former captain and quite an experienced defender, he is out at the moment. I'm not sure we've got the personnel to play 3 centre halves on Saturday, and I think he'll probably look at what you're going to do, and he'll probably either go 4-4-2 or 4-5-1, depending on how he thinks that you're going to line up, I suspect.
And how's Michael Turner doing on that on that note? Because Michael Turner was a weird one. He came to us with a really, really good reputation, which he never really matched. Like, he came with a reputation of a potential England centre half, and it never really matched. He was always a little bit too slow, but he was prone to having some great games, and he actually played all right originally alongside Titus Bramble of all people, but that only lasted about 3 months. But I mean, we're talking a few years ago now. Obviously, that may be the reason he's dropped down quite a few divisions. I imagine he hasn't sped up very much, but he plays every week for you, so he must be doing something right. How do you view Big Michael Turner?
He had a really good season last year. Actually, he was injured for most of the first few months, and we all thought, here we go. We signed a 34-year-old who, he hadn't played very much for Norwich the previous season. I think he'd played like 2 games. So we thought we'd signed a croc, which is kind of something we do quite a lot. But he came in November and he was superb for most of last season. He's not quick. You're right. He hasn't sped up.
No.
I can confirm. But he's perfectly all right if you play him alongside someone who is. And at the moment we've got a guy on loan from Bristol City called Taylor Moore, who they paid I think £2 million for a couple of years ago, and he's really, really started well for us. He looks a real class act. He's quick. And Turner, who came on as a sub last night for Harry Lennon when Harry Lennon got injured, I think he'll really benefit from playing alongside Moore, because Moore will kind of do his running for him. Turner's a threat in the air. He wins everything in the air. He generally, I think we looked at some stats, I think actually in the fanzine this month, about we analysed some statistics which were given to us by StatsBomb on 2 of our games this season, and Michael Turner didn't lose a single header in both of those games. So he wins everything in the air. It's just a case of whether, if you turn him, obviously he's not up to much. But alongside him, Taylor Moore has played well, and those two have got, I think, potentially the makings of a decent partnership. It's just whether you can keep Turner fit, because obviously he's not getting any younger.
I suppose he'll be up against probably, I want to say, Jerome Sinclair on Saturday. Obviously, Josh Maguire was injured last night. Jack Ross did say that he expected him to be back. But he just said he expected that yesterday as well. So he potentially will be up against Jerome Sinclair. But I suppose Jerome Sinclair's probably the kind of guy you want up against someone like Michael Turner, as opposed to, say, Charlie White, who's very much of similar ilk, I think. Which kind of brings me on to Sunderland. I guess one thing that I was mentioning to the Shrewsbury fan I was speaking to last week that's quite interesting about us is we're still learning to an extent about our own team, because we've had such an overhaul of Chris Maguire. Absolutely love Chris Maguire. And we're really beginning to get a connection with this team, but we're still only 13, 14 games in. Is there anyone that you've been looking at from the outside looking in of the Sunderland team that you think not really looking forward to going up against him on Saturday?
God, Chris Maguire's a shithouse, isn't he?
Yeah, I love him.
I hate Chris Maguire. No, I mean, he's one of those players, isn't he? If you've got him, he's amazing, fantastic.
Brilliant.
He played for Oxford a couple of years ago, and he scored a free kick against us. And he did this really silly celebration where he kind of danced down the touchline, like in a kind of a stupid way in front of our fans. And then Anthony Wordsworth, who we had at the time, who now plays for Wimbledon, banged him at the other end and did mimicked his dance, sort of in a kind of a over the top kind of spitting image kind of way to sort of take the mickey. So he's clearly a player who winds players up.
Yeah,
I have to admit, I don't like the idea of playing against him, because I know what he can do. He didn't. I mean, I don't think anyone shone in that Bury side last year.
No.
He's clearly a very good player at this level. You don't want to give him a free kick particularly close to the goal. He's someone, if you give him any time and space, he'll punish you. So yeah, I don't like him at all, but I can understand why you guys do.
We love him. We love him because it's like we've had years of watching people like Jack Rodwell and people who don't give a shite about playing football, let alone playing for Sunderland Football Association Football Club, should I say? Whereas Chris Maguire just seems to bloody love it. It seems like he's come to Sunderland. He's 28. He's probably of the opinion that it's maybe the biggest club he's going to have, especially at this point in his career. And he's just turned it on for us. I think he got 2 goals last season for Bury, and I think he's got 4 for us already this season. He scored a worldie down at Burton, even though it was the game we got beat. But I think what's great about him was, and I'm kind of just repeating what people know here anyway, but for the top of the conversation, he had two poorish games. Coincidentally, against Oxford was one of them, and he got dropped for the Burton game. And he came on at half time, banged in a 25-yard, and he's never looked back. He's a guy that's really hungry to impress and have fun. But like you say, I think I can understand disliking him because he is a wind-up merchant, but at the same time, the good thing for us is he tends to back up. He's tongue-in-cheek antics, shall we say. So I'm pleased you said Chris Maguire because I love Chris Maguire.
Well, I mean, I actually think you've been really clever with your signings this year. I've followed it a bit in the summer, obviously, and you've signed players who are hungry at this level, and they're not kind of I know you've got rid of a lot of deadwood, not all of them, but I know you've got rid of most of them now, and players who are just picking up the money, and you just can't have that club in League One. It just doesn't work. So you need to have players who kind of know the division a bit. Charlie Wyke, another good signing, I think. Always impressed me when he played against Southend. Sorry. Yeah, Maguire, good signing. He signed a couple of. Is it Jack Baldwin? I think as well, centre half.
Yeah, Jack Baldwin's a funny one because I think in the main he's been absolutely excellent, but when he fucks something up, he really knows how to fuck it up. But he's
one against us last year actually for Peterborough. He basically handed Marc-Antoine Fortuné the ball about 6 yards out. So there you go, mate. Off you go.
That's a throwback. Marc-Antoine Fortuné. I live in Glasgow, funnily enough. So I remember when he used to play for Celtic. That is a name I haven't heard for a long time. I didn't even know he still exists. To be fair, I didn't know Michael Turner existed until a few weeks ago. But you mentioned about Anton Ferdinand. Is he gone now?
Yes, thankfully he has gone. Yeah, Anton Ferdinand had a really good first season, and then we gave him a 2-year contract, and he just seemed to. He was really poor at the start of last season. I don't know quite what happened to him. I know he had a few personal problems. I know he had a personal tragedy as well, which obviously doesn't help. So you got to be kind of a bit sensitive to that. But he was kind of made a scapegoat a little bit by the fans, and then he didn't help himself because he was always on Twitter. Kind of going on about his love for West Ham, who are not the most popular club
with anyone.
With anyone, but particularly not with us. So it's kind of that's not what you want your captain to be doing when he's on the social media. So it really built up kind of he really didn't help himself. So by the end, it was just Chris Powell came in and he played all right actually once Powell came in, but he was always looking, I think, to get rid because it just wasn't. It was untenable really from that point onwards. So no, he's gone to St Mirren. I understand.
He's at St Mirren. Oh, I didn't know he was just up the road. We played St Mirren in pre-season. That was the only home game I get all season, to be honest with you. I didn't know he was at St Mirren wearing black and white, who are not doing very well, actually, funnily enough, since they've lost their Jack Ross. What you mentioned about Chris Powell being a really good manager at this level, and I would agree most definitely. I think he's definitely earned his stripes and has a level of respect due to his time with Charlton, and he was with Huddersfield, I believe, as well. When it comes to our appointment, I suppose it was polar opposite to what we did last year. We went with sort of Simon Grayson last year and kind of went with the tried and tested, the steady and sure, and that didn't really work. Whereas Jack Ross, although he did very, very well with St Mirren, which is very much untested waters, doing well in the Scottish Championships, probably even still a little bit different in League One, but he's really impressed us so far. But from an outside looking in, did you expect us to go for an appointment like Jack Ross, or did you expect us to go like safe and steady?
It's difficult to say because what I do think is you flushed the whole club really, didn't you, from top to bottom?
Yeah.
So you've got Stuart Donald in now. And that is, I think, really important for you because you had a really couple of really bad seasons. Well, more than a couple. It was kind of a downward spiral, wasn't it, for a long time?
Yeah.
And it just needed a new broom. And I think with the new owner coming in as well, I understand. I don't know the ins and outs, obviously, but I understand the debt has been sort of dealt with. And Jack Ross. Hard to say whether I expected that kind of appointment, but I suppose with what's happened at the club and the way that the new broom has kind of swept clean, I'm not surprised. It's not surprising that he's gone for someone perhaps without any baggage down here, and he's gone for someone north the border who's done a good job up there. Because obviously you don't. The last thing you need is to go for someone an old name who's just kind of in for a paycheck and. and obviously Jack Ross is from stepping up to where he's come from. It's a huge step up in terms of the size of the club. But he's obviously going to be not resting on his laurels, and he's a young manager, and he's going to be keen to do well, and he's obviously someone that he's had an eye on. So yeah, it's an impressive appointment in that respect. He's not been afraid to go for someone who you wouldn't necessarily think you'd go for.
Yeah, I think, and again, I think as a whole, the fan base has been really impressed. And it's more like I don't think we've really hit top form yet. And yet we've only lost one. We're learning how to win games on the road, tough games. Last night was a difficult game. On Saturday, with all due respect, I think we're expecting to go in and sort of win the game. But I think we felt like that a lot of the times at the beginning of the season. For example, I think we beat Gillingham, we beat a few teams away from home, Wimbledon, and then we went and played Oxford at home. And I think we just expected not to turn up, but I think we know every game's going to be tough, but I think we expected the win. I think potentially we may go in like that on Saturday, but how are you expecting Saturday to go?
I think we're going to have to keep you quiet for the first half an hour or so, because you're on a roll. We want one. Is it 4 in a row? I'm not sure, but certainly a few wins in a row now.
3 away from home. Yep, 3 away from home, 6 unbeaten.
So we're not on a bad run ourselves, but we do need to stem the tide probably for the first half an hour or so. I'm not expecting an awful lot out Saturday, I must say. I mean, I think it's very similar for me your situation to Blackburn last season, because Blackburn found it, the first few games they found it tough. We beat them on the opening day. We were lucky enough to have them on the opening day because they were still adjusting very much to this level, and we turned them over at Roots Hall, and obviously that was great for everyone. But they found their feet eventually. It does take a little bit of getting used to. It's just a different division in so many ways. And once you've found that little bit of form, it's actually very hard to stop a team with the players of the calibre that Sunderland have got once they get on that good run. So I'd be very happy with a draw, to be honest. But we'll see how it goes. We've won 3 away games in a row, which hasn't happened since August. That's almost April 2015, I think. So quite a long time. So you never know. We might be able to spring an upset, but we'd have to have an awful lot. I think we're going to have to ride our luck a bit, and certainly hope you have a bit of an off day, I think.
It's always nice speaking to fans from a League One team because they still think we're quite good, and I know what Sunderland can do. We can turn up shite Sunderland whenever we want, but I am quite quietly confident. Listeners to the podcast will know, you won't. I went almost 600 and odd days not seeing Sunderland win in the flesh, and it was like every time we won at home, which wasn't often, I tend to miss it. Even though I've got a season ticket, I just missed it. Seeing us win away from home was just ridiculous. But this season, I've managed to see us win at home, and I've managed to see us win away. So the duck's hopefully a bit broken, but I'm a bit worried now because I'm not actually going to the game on Saturday. I have prior commitments, i.e. work, unfortunately, which I'm not allowed to get out of. So I will be slightly watching or trying to nab a dodgy stream somewhere, I think. But I am confident. But at the same time, the Fleetwood games and the Oxford games, I think that we had where we drew 1-1, and I think Fleetwood were probably far the better side in the first 30, 40 minutes against us. Yeah, we played well second half. I think we've learned not to underestimate teams, and I think a team coming in on a 3-0 win against Walsall at home, and at the same time 9th off top, you'll be wanting to come here, and I don't want to say it's your cup final. There's big teams as big as us that have been in this league quite recently, such as Blackburn, but it's one of your bigger games of the season where if you do win a game, it's going to be noticed. It's going to be a turnover, and it's also going to possibly boost your season if you're in 9th and boost you up towards those playoff places. But with that being said, I do fancy a 2-1 win. We have had 2 clean sheets, which is nice, but I'm still a little bit suspect towards our defence. I'm fancying a 2-1 win, but I think it does depend on what kind of mood Chris Maguire turns up in. Hopefully he's in a wind-up one. And are you going to the match on Saturday at all?
I've got a confession, but I'm not actually going to the game on Saturday. I'm really gutted about it. I'm going to Barnsley the following week, and I have a young child, and there's no way I'm getting away with 2 long-haul away games in a row, particularly as we had the cup draw the other night, and if it could have been 3. Fortunately, we got home draw, but yeah, I would love to be going. I did actually really enjoy my trip to Sunderland last time, even though we lost 4-0. I've never been to a city so geared up to its football team in my entire history of watching Southend. I remember turning up about 12:30 in the afternoon, and there was there was strippers on, comedians on in the pubs around the ground. Well, what is this? This whole place is just here for its football club, and
Yeah.
if you walk down Southend High Street on a match day, you won't even know. You're lucky if you know there's a game on. So I was very jealous in that respect. So it's a great place to watch football, and I am disappointed not to be going. But we're taking I think we'll probably have about 1,200 or so up there. So I'm hoping that we'll give a good account of ourselves.
Yeah, that's not a bad tally.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, when you mentioned that, you don't want to say it's our cup final and stuff, but to be honest, it isn't our cup final, and we have had big clubs down here before, but it is a big game for everyone in this division, Sunderland away. So I dare say we'll take quite a few up, and we're hopeful. If we can get an early goal, maybe make a breakthrough from a set piece like we did last night, then you never know. Who knows? I'll go 2-2.
2-2. Okay, I'll take that, but I'll take the 2-1 for me. But thanks for coming on, Jay. Good chatting, actually. I feel like with each podcast that I'm doing, I'm getting a little bit more games, the more stadiums I'm going to, the more of an insight I'm sort of getting into what this league is, and I'm loving it a little bit too much. It'll be a shame if we do get promoted in a kind of really weird sense, because I've loved it that much. But shame you're not coming up on Saturday, but it makes two of us. But good luck for the rest of the season. Thanks for popping on. And I might probably see you down at Southend, because I do have to get rid of that memory of the dog shit and the 3-1 defeat. And also it's the last game of the season, I think.
That's going to be interesting, isn't it?
So yeah, hopefully we've got something to pick up that's nice and silvery at the end of the season, and that'll do me.
Well, yeah, I mean, thanks for inviting me on. I wish you the best for the season, and who knows, if we don't go up this year, well, hopefully we could both be chatting again in the Championship next year. Who knows?
Who knows, my man? But thanks again for coming on. Good luck for the rest of the season, apart from Saturday. Have a horrible Saturday. After that, enjoy the rest of your season until the last day of the season.
Cheers, you too.
Cheers, chap.
Cheers, bye.
So, actually really liked Jay. I thought he was cool. Nice guy. So yeah, Southend at home. Yeah, we should win that. It's nice, isn't it, to be confident? I'm really buzzing for the game. I mean, I'm the kind of person that's been, in previous years probably should have been buzzing for the latest blockbuster that came out. I'm a bit of a film buff, for those of you who don't know. And I would have been buzzing for Halloween if it was the years were reversed. But to be honest, I was watching Halloween last night, and as much as I enjoyed it, I'm not going to drop any spoilers. It was great. I was keeping an eye on Sunderland's result, even though it was technically my date night with my wife. But yeah, isn't it great to be liking players like Chris Maguire and hearing people saying how much they don't like him because of what he's like, and looking forward to just the games. It's brilliant. I loved my time down Shrewsbury. I actually didn't get to Shrewsbury till about sort of 5-2 on Saturday, quick half a pint, and I have that horrendously long walk towards the ground. I need to learn to say our players are shite more often, because every time I've done that this season, a goal's gone in. As soon as Luke 9 came on, I was like, I think he's shite. And he scored with pretty much his second or first touch. So yeah, if any Sunderland players are listening, I think you're all shite. And hopefully that works as it did on Saturday. Yeah, so thanks for sort of checking in again. As always, listen to the extra podcast. I'm sounding cheerier, aren't I, than I ever have been before. If you listen to the ones from last season in comparison to this season, it's absolutely superb. There's a real difference in my voice. I'm just loving League One. I think we all are. And I know I don't want to be here forever. I know that I want to get promoted. I don't want to be in the Championship forever, because I hate that league. But League One, really enjoying it. Enjoying going to away games, speaking to real fans, seeing Sunderland win, having players on the pitch that I'm really, really in tune with and really liking. So yeah, onwards and upwards. Let's get our 4th win in a row. Let's go for it. Let's get in those automatic promotion places. And I've said it for a few weeks. Once we get there, let's never get out of it. Thanks for checking in as always. I've been Graham. This has been the ROKER Report Extra Podcast.